The penthouse kitchen gleamed with surgical precision, marble countertops reflecting the city lights far below, stainless steel appliances that cost more than most cars. Everything in Lim Junho's domain existed in perfect order, controlled and untouchable. Yet tonight at 2:47 a.m. that perfection shattered with the sound of broken sobbing. Junho paused in the doorway, his tailored black suit still immaculate despite the late hour. The delicate vertical Korean script tattooed on his neck, visible above his loosened collar. His sharp eyes, which had stared down armed rivals without flinching, now fixed on the crumpled figure of his maid, hunched over the kitchen island, her shoulders shaking with grief she'd tried so hard to hide. LaToya Williams had worked for him for 3 months. She arrived before dawn, left after dusk, and moved through his home like a ghost, efficient, invisible, exactly as he preferred. He knew nothing about her except that she cleaned better than the previous 5 maids combined, and never ever drew attention to herself. Until now. Something twisted in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that he immediately tried to dismiss. He should walk away. Her personal problems weren't his concern. Yet his feet carried him forward, his polished shoes silent on the pristine floor. What happened? LaToya's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face reflecting pure panic. Her rich mahogany skin glistened with tears, her natural coils escaping the tight bun she always wore for work. Those warm brown eyes he'd never really looked at before, widened with mortification. "Mr. Lim? I'm so sorry. I thought you were still out. I'll clean this up right now. I'm so sorry." She scrambled to her feet, frantically wiping her face with her uniform sleeves, her hands trembling. "I asked what happened." His voice came out harder than intended, but Junho had spent 15 years in a world where weakness was death. Gentleness wasn't a language he spoke fluently anymore. "Nothing, sir. I apologize for the disturbance. It won't happen again." She kept her gaze down, her posture rigidly professional despite her obvious distress. Junho moved closer, studying her with the same intensity he'd used to assess a threat. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her uniform hung looser than it had a month ago. Her hands bore the rough reddened texture of someone who worked multiple cleaning jobs, scrubbing away the sins of the wealthy while her own life fell apart in the shadows. "You're lying." He crossed his arms, his presence filling the kitchen like a storm about to break. "And you're terrible at it." A laugh bubbled out of her, half hysteria, half despair. "Yeah, well, I'm also terrible at keeping my personal life from bleeding into my work, so I guess tonight's just full of failures." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "God, I'm sorry, I'll go. I'll come back tomorrow and make this right." "Sit." "Mr. Lim." That wasn't a request. He pulled out one of the pristine bar stools, his dark eyes locking with hers in a silent battle of wills. LaToya hesitated, clearly torn between fleeing and the magnetic pull of a man who commanded empires with nothing but his voice. Finally, she sank onto the stool, her entire body radiating exhaustion that went soul-deep. Junho moved to the rarely used liquor cabinet, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey worth more than her monthly rent. He slid one across to her, then leaned against the counter opposite, waiting. "I can't drink on the job," she whispered. "You're not cleaning right now. You're talking to me." He took a deliberate sip, his gaze never leaving hers. "And I'm running out of patience." Something in his tone, not quite threatening but absolutely unyielding, broke through her defenses. LaToya wrapped her fingers around the crystal glass, the amber liquid catching the light like captured fire. "My father." The words came out broken, raw. "He's dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him 3 months, maybe 6, with aggressive treatment." She took a shaky breath. "Treatment he can't afford. Treatment that insurance won't fully cover because apparently dying is only covered if you're rich enough to do it properly." Junho's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around his glass. "I work 3 jobs, LaToya continued, the words tumbling out now like a dam had burst. "Here, an office building downtown, and weekend shifts at a hotel. I've been sending every cent I can to his care facility, but it's not enough. It's never enough." She laughed bitterly. "Tonight, they called. Said if I can't come up with $30,000 by Friday, they're transitioning him to hospice. Basically telling him to go home and die comfortably instead of fighting." "And your family?" "It's just me and my little brother, James. He's 12. Smart as hell, but he's just a kid." She finally took a sip of the whiskey, coughing slightly at the burn. "Our mom passed when I was 16. Dad raised us alone, worked himself half to death to give us everything. And now," her voice cracked, "now I can't even save him." Silence filled the kitchen, heavy and profound. Junho studied this woman who cleaned his floors and organized his life, seeing her clearly for the first time. The proud set of her shoulders despite her tears, the fierce love in her voice when she spoke of her family, the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd been drowning for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe. In his world, he dealt in power, fear, and absolute control. People either owed him loyalty or stayed far from his path. Compassion was a weakness that got you killed. Sentiment was a luxury he'd abandoned long ago. Yet standing here, watching this woman break apart over a father she'd sacrifice everything to save, something ancient and long buried stirred in his chest. 30,000 by Friday, he said finally, his voice dangerously soft. Latoya nodded miserably. I've tried everything. Loans, crowdfunding, selling everything I own worth anything. But nobody's going to give $30,000 to a maid with no collateral and 3 maxed-out credit cards. She wiped her eyes roughly. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all this. I'll finish out my shift. I'll give you the money. The world seemed to stop. Latoya's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. What? $30,000. I'll have it transferred to the care facility tomorrow morning. Junho set down his glass with deliberate precision. Your father will get his treatment. Mr. Lim, I can't accept. You can and you will. His tone left no room for argument. Consider it an advance on your salary. You'll work it off over time. It would take me years to pay back that kind of money. Latoya stood abruptly, her hands trembling. I can't be in debt to you for the rest of my life. Then don't think of it as debt. He moved around the counter, closing the distance between them until she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Up close, he could see the golden flecks in her brown eyes, the elegant curve of her jaw, the strength that radiated from her despite everything life had thrown at her. Think of it as an investment. In what? In someone worth investing in. The words surprised him as much as they did her. Junho didn't make impulsive decisions. Every move in his world was calculated, strategic, designed to increase his power or protect his interests. Yet looking at Latoya Williams, with her tear-stained face and fierce pride and desperate hope, he found himself doing something completely irrational. He was choosing to care. I don't understand, Latoya whispered. Why would you do this for me? You barely know me. Junho reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The simple touch sent electricity through them both, a connection neither had anticipated. Because someone who loves that fiercely, he said quietly, deserves to have someone fight for them too. Before Latoya could respond, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. Junho glanced at the screen, his expression hardening instantly. The moment of vulnerability vanished, replaced by the cold mask of the man who controlled Chicago's underworld with an iron fist. I need to handle something, he said, his voice returning to its usual commanding tone. Be here tomorrow morning at 9. We'll finalize the details. Mr. Lim, that's not a request, Latoya. He turned toward the door, then paused, looking back at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. And stop calling me Mr. Lim when we're alone. My name is Junho. Then he was gone, leaving Latoya standing in his kitchen with a half-empty glass of expensive whiskey and the impossible, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, her father had a chance. What she didn't know was that outside, in the darkness of his penthouse hallway, Junho pressed his palm against the wall and took a slow, steadying breath. He'd just made a decision that broke every rule he'd lived by for 15 years. He'd let someone matter. He'd exposed himself to the one thing more dangerous than any rival's bullet. He'd started to care about someone whose life he could destroy with a single word, or whose death could destroy him in ways no enemy ever could. Latoya barely slept that night. She lay in her cramped studio apartment, staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying the scene in Junho's kitchen over and over. His words echoed in her mind. Someone who loves that fiercely deserves to have someone fight for them too. At 4 a.m. she gave up on sleep and called the care facility. The night nurse confirmed that a transfer had already been processed, $30,000, paid in full, with instructions to begin her father's treatment immediately. Latoya sobbed into her pillow, overwhelmed by relief and terror in equal measure. Her father would live. But what had she just agreed to? At exactly 9 a.m. she stood outside Junho's penthouse, her hand shaking as she rang the bell. She'd changed from her maid's uniform into the only decent dress she owned, a simple navy blue that had seen better days but was clean and pressed. The door opened to reveal not Junho, but a tall Korean man with hard eyes and a gun barely concealed beneath his jacket. He looked her up and down with obvious suspicion. "Latoya Williams," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Mr. Lim asked me to come." The man, clearly some kind of bodyguard, stepped aside without a word. The penthouse looked different in daylight, even more imposing. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Chicago's skyline, the city sprawling below like Junho's personal kingdom. "Miss Williams." Junho emerged from his study, and Latoya's breath caught despite herself. In the harsh light of morning, he looked even more dangerous. Black dress shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing surprisingly muscular forearms. The delicate Korean script on his neck seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." He gestured to the leather sofa, and Latoya perched on its edge, acutely aware of how out of place she looked in this world of wealth and danger. Junho settled into the chair across from her, studying her with that unnerving intensity. "Your father's treatment began 2 hours ago. The facility assures me he's in excellent hands." "I don't know how to thank you," Latoya said, tears threatening again. "I'll work every day, extra hours, whatever you need." "About that." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I have a proposal that benefits us both more than you simply cleaning my penthouse for the next decade." Unease prickled down Latoya's spine. "What kind of proposal?" "I need someone I can trust in my home, someone who sees and hears everything but speaks to no one." His dark eyes held hers. "My world is dangerous, Latoya. Information is currency, loyalty is survival. The wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time can destroy empires." "I'm just a maid," she whispered. "You're observant, intelligent, and you have everything to lose if you betray me. Namely, your father's continued treatment." His voice remained even, almost conversational, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. "I'm proposing you become more than my maid. You'll live here, in the guest wing. You'll manage my household, coordinate with my staff, and be my eyes and ears when I'm away. You want me to spy for you? I want you to be someone I can trust absolutely." He stood, moving to the windows, his silhouette dark against the blazing sunlight. "In return, your father receives the best care available for as long as he needs it. Your brother will be enrolled in the best private school in Chicago. You'll receive a salary that will eliminate your debt within 2 years and set you up for life after that." Latoya's mind reeled. "Why me? You could hire anyone." "Because you have something most people in my world don't." He turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his expression stole her breath. "You have something worth protecting. That makes you loyal in ways money never could. You're asking me to move into your home, to be available to you whenever you need me." Latoya stood, meeting his gaze despite her fear. "What else are you asking for?" Junho moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. He stopped inches away, and Latoya caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and darkly masculine that made her head spin. "I'm asking for your presence, your loyalty, your discretion." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I'm not asking for anything you're not willing to give. And if someone threatens me to get to you, then they'll learn very quickly what happens to people who touch what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone sent heat flooding through her body, terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Latoya should run. Every instinct screamed that she was about to make a deal with the devil himself. But when she thought of her father, finally getting the treatment that might save his life, and James, who deserved better than the underfunded public school where violence was as common as homework. "I have conditions," she said firmly. Junho's lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "I'd be disappointed if you didn't. James visits whenever he wants. No questions, no restrictions." "Agreed. I'm not participating in anything illegal. I won't lie to police, I won't hide evidence, I won't—" "You'll never be asked to." He moved even closer, and Latoya's back hit the window, the cold glass a shock against her heated skin. "But you will see things, hear things. You'll pretend you saw and heard nothing. Can you do that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Honesty." He lifted his hand, tucking a loose coil of hair behind her ear, with surprising gentleness. "That's good. That's exactly what I need from you. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? Then your father's treatment continues anyway." Junho's thumb traced along her jaw, and Latoya shivered despite herself. "I'm many things, Latoya, but I'm not cruel. Your father's life isn't conditional on your success. It's already guaranteed. Then why would I agree to this? Because you're not someone who accepts charity." His dark eyes saw right through her. "You need to earn this, to feel like you've paid your debt. And because, whether you want to admit it or not, you're curious about me, about this world, about what it would be like to stop being invisible for once in your life." He was right, and it terrified her. For 3 months she'd cleaned this penthouse while wondering about the man who owned it. The dangerous, powerful man who ran his empire from the shadows while living in ostentatious luxury. She'd caught glimpses of vulnerability beneath his cold exterior. Moments of humanity that made her wonder who Lim Jun-ho really was when he wasn't being the feared boss everyone else saw. "When would I start?" she asked quietly. "Now." He stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "Pack what you need. I'll send someone to help move your belongings this afternoon. I need to talk to my brother first. He deserves to understand what's happening. Bring him for dinner tonight. Let him see where you'll be living." Jun-ho pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. "And Latoya, welcome to my world. Try not to get lost in it." The rest of the day passed in a blur. The bodyguard from earlier, whose name she learned was Kang Hyun-woo, drove her to her apartment in a car worth more than she'd earned in 5 years. He waited patiently while she packed her meager belongings, never commenting on the cramped space or worn furniture. Her best friend Shanice arrived just as she was finishing, taking one look at Hyun-woo standing guard and pulling Latoya into the tiny bathroom. "Girl, please tell me you know what you're doing," Shanice hissed. "That man out there is packing heat, and you're about to move in with his boss? This sounds like the beginning of a true crime podcast." "Dad's getting treatment, Shanice. Real treatment. He might actually survive." Latoya gripped her friend's hands. "I know it's crazy. I know it's dangerous, but what choice do I have? The choice to walk away before you're in too deep. I'm already in too deep." Latoya thought of Jun-ho's hand on her face, the way his voice had gentled when he promised her father was safe regardless of her decision. "But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing." Shanice studied her with knowing eyes. "Oh no. Oh, Latoya, no. You're already falling for him, aren't you? Don't be ridiculous, I barely know him." "That's not a denial." It wasn't, and that scared Latoya more than anything else about the deal she'd just made. That evening she brought James to the penthouse. Her little brother's eyes went wide as saucers at the luxury surrounding them, but what surprised Latoya was Jun-ho's reaction when she introduced them. The cold, dangerous man transformed. He crouched down to James's level, his expression softening in a way that made Latoya's heart ache. "Your sister tells me you're good at math," Jun-ho said. James nodded shyly. "I like numbers. They make sense." "They do, don't they? Much more reliable than people." Jun-ho glanced up at Latoya with something that might have been self-deprecation. "What do you say we order pizza, and you can tell me about what you're studying?" Over dinner. Expensive pizza that James declared weird but good. Latoya watched her employer with growing confusion. This wasn't the feared Mafia boss. This was a man who listened patiently to a 12-year-old explain his science project, who made sure James got the last slice, who seemed genuinely interested in this child's dreams of becoming an engineer. After James fell asleep on the guest room bed, exhausted from excitement, Jun-ho found Latoya standing at the windows, staring out at the glittering city. "He's a good kid," Jun-ho said quietly, joining her at the glass. "He's everything to me." Latoya's voice was thick with emotion. "Him and my father. They're why I'm doing this." "I know." He was silent for a moment, then, "When I was 12, my father died. He was in the same business I'm in now. Got too ambitious, trusted the wrong people. My mother couldn't survive it. She followed him 6 months later." Latoya turned to him, shocked by this glimpse of vulnerability. "I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me the most important lesson of my life." His jaw tightened. "In this world, the only people you can trust are the ones who have everything to lose if they betray you. Family or—" He looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her knees weak. "Or people you make into family." "Is that what this is?" Latoya whispered. "You're making me family? I'm making you mine." He reached out, his fingers intertwining with hers, and Latoya felt the electric connection between them intensify to something almost painful. Whether that becomes family or something else entirely, I guess we'll find out. Before she could respond, Hyun-woo appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Boss, we have a situation." The transformation was instantaneous. Jun-ho's hand left hers, his entire demeanor shifting back to cold authority. "What situation?" "The Park family is making moves on the Southside territory. 3 of our collectors didn't report in tonight." Jun-ho's eyes went flat and deadly. "Handle it. I want answers by midnight." "You're not coming?" "No." Jun-ho glanced at Latoya, and something fierce flashed across his face. "I'm staying here tonight. Send me updates." After Hyun-woo left, Latoya touched Jun-ho's arm tentatively. "Is this what my life is going to be like? Men with guns showing up at all hours? Dangerous situations you can't explain?" "Yes." He didn't sugarcoat it. But you'll never be in danger. I'll make sure of that. How can you promise that when your own people are disappearing? Because I'll burn this entire city to the ground before I let anything happen to you or your family. The vow was spoken with such absolute conviction that Latoya believed him completely, and that should have terrified her. Instead, standing in Lim Junho's penthouse with her brother sleeping peacefully in the next room and her father finally getting the care he needed, Latoya felt something she hadn't experienced in years. She felt safe. The irony of feeling safest in the most dangerous place she'd ever been wasn't lost on her. But as Junho's hand found hers again in the darkness, their fingers interlocking like they'd always belonged together, Latoya made her choice. She wasn't running, not from him, not from this. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. 3 weeks into her new life, Latoya stood in Junho's study at 2 a.m., watching him work through stacks of documents with tireless intensity. She'd brought him coffee, the 3rd cup that night, and was about to retreat when his voice stopped her. "Stay." She turned, surprised. "You're working. I don't want to disturb." "You don't." He set down his pen, rubbing his eyes wearily. "Sit with me, please." Latoya settled into the leather chair across from his desk, curling her legs beneath her. Over the past weeks, she'd learned the rhythms of his life, the late nights when deals went bad, the tense phone calls in rapid Korean, the moments of absolute stillness when he planned his next move like a master chess player. She'd also learned the small things, how he took his coffee, the way his jaw tightened when he was truly angry versus merely annoyed, the rare, devastating smile that transformed his entire face when James called to tell her about his new school. "Your father's responding well to treatment," Junho said, glancing at his laptop screen. "The doctors are optimistic about remission." Latoya's throat tightened with emotion. "You've been checking on him?" "Every day." He said it so casually, as if monitoring her father's condition was the most natural thing in the world. "James got an A on his math test. His teacher says he's thriving at the new school. You've been checking on him too?" "Of course." Junho's dark eyes met hers. "They're important to you. That makes them important to me." Something shifted in Latoya's chest, a dangerous warmth spreading through her defenses. "Why are you doing all this?" "The truth, Junho." He was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he stood, moving to the window where the city lights painted patterns across his face. "When you've lived in darkness as long as I have," he said quietly, "you stop believing light exists. You become the darkness. You justify every terrible thing by telling yourself it's survival, it's business, it's just the way the world works." He turned to face her, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. "Then one night, you find someone crying in your kitchen because they love their father too much to let him die, and suddenly you remember what light looks like." Latoya stood, drawn to him by forces she couldn't name. "I'm not light, Junho. I'm just as broken as you are." "No." He crossed to her in 3 strides, his hands framing her face with unexpected gentleness. "You're stronger than you know. You work 3 jobs to save your father. You sacrifice everything for your brother. You walk into the home of a dangerous man and refuse to be intimidated because you have something worth fighting for." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "That's not broken. That's beautiful." "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of what I'm starting to feel for you. Afraid of this world you live in. Afraid that one day I'll wake up and you'll be gone, taken by the same violence that took those 3 men who disappeared. That won't happen. You can't promise that." "No," he agreed. "But I can promise that every day I'm here, I'll protect you, I'll protect James and your father. I'll give you everything I have to give, even though I know it's not enough. Even though I know I'm too damaged, too dangerous, too deep in this life to offer you anything like a normal future. What if I don't want normal?" The words escaped before Latoya could stop them. "What if I want this? You, exactly as you are?" Junho's control cracked. He pulled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair as his forehead rested against hers. "You shouldn't. You should run as far from me as possible." "But I won't." She gripped his shirt, holding him close. "Because I've spent my whole life being invisible, being the woman who cleans up everyone else's messes and disappears before anyone notices. But you see me, Junho. You've always seen me. I see you," he whispered fiercely. "I see everything. Your strength, your kindness, your fierce love. I see the way you bite your lip when you're worried about your father, the way you light up when James calls, the way you try to hide your fear when my world touches yours." His hand slid to her waist, pulling her impossibly closer. "I see all of you, Latoya, and I want all of you." The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. soft at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. But Latoya had spent 3 weeks fighting this attraction, 3 weeks pretending her heart didn't race every time he entered a room, 3 weeks lying to herself about what she wanted. She stopped lying. Her hands slid into his hair as she kissed him back with everything she'd been holding back, all the fear and hope and desperate longing. Junho made a rough sound in his throat, his control shattering as he lifted her onto his desk, scattering papers to the floor. His mouth moved to her jaw, her neck, finding the sensitive spot that made her gasp his name. "If we do this," he murmured against her skin, "there's no going back. You'll be mine, Latoya. Completely. And I don't share." "Then don't." She pulled his face back to hers, seeing the darkness in him and accepting it, seeing the man beneath and wanting him desperately. "I'm already yours. I have been since that night in the kitchen when you chose to care instead of walking away." They made love there in his study with the city watching below, and it was nothing like Latoya had imagined. It was tender and fierce, desperate and gentle, two damaged people finding wholeness in each other's arms. Afterward, Junho held her close, his heart thundering against her ear, and Latoya felt something slot into place in her soul. This was where she belonged, in his arms, in his world, no matter how dangerous. The morning after brought reality crashing back. Latoya woke in Junho's bed, a massive thing that probably cost more than her old apartment, to find him already dressed, his expression grim as he spoke in rapid Korean on his phone. She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest, and watched as he ended the call with barely contained violence. "What's wrong?" "The Park family took out one of my distribution centers last night. Killed 2 guards. His jaw was tight with rage. "They're declaring war." "What does that mean?" "It means things are about to get dangerous." He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. "I need you to take James and stay with Shanice for a few days. Maybe longer." "No." Latoya squeezed his fingers. "I'm not leaving you. This isn't a discussion." "You're right, it's not." She met his eyes steadily. "You told me I was yours. That works both ways, Junho. I'm not running the first time things get difficult. People could die, Latoya, people will die. Then make sure I'm not one of them." She cupped his face, feeling the tension thrumming through him. "I understand what you do. I'm not naive. But I also know that if I leave now you'll push me away to protect me, and I'll never get back in." He closed his eyes, warring with himself. "You're asking me to risk you. I'm asking you to trust me." She kissed him softly. "Trust that I'm strong enough for this. Trust that I choose you, knowing exactly what that means." "You're insane," he muttered, but pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like armor. "Absolutely insane. Probably." She smiled against his chest. "But so are you. We're perfect for each other." The next few days proved how right she was. Junho's world erupted in calculated violence as he moved against the Park family with surgical precision. Latoya watched from the safety of the penthouse as he transformed into someone colder, harder, more dangerous than she'd ever seen. But late at night, when the meetings ended and the guards were posted, and the city held its breath waiting for the next move, he came to her. In her arms, the cold Mafia boss became simply Junho, a man carrying too much weight, fighting too many battles, desperate for the peace she somehow gave him. "I killed 3 men today," he said one night, his voice hollow as they lay tangled together in the darkness. Latoya didn't flinch. "Did they deserve it? They tortured one of my people, sent him back in pieces as a message. Then they got what they deserved." She kissed his shoulder. "I'm not going to judge you for protecting your own, Junho. That would make me a hypocrite considering you've protected mine. How can you accept this? Accept me? Because I see who you are when it's just us." She shifted to look at him, her hand over his heart. "You're not just the boss, you're the man who makes sure my father has the best doctors, who helped James with his science project over video chat because he wanted to be there for him, who holds me like I'm something precious, even though your world is built on taking, not giving. You make me want to be better." His confession was raw. "You make me want to walk away from all of this and build something clean with you, but I can't. This life is who you are, I know." She kissed him deeply. "I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to let me stay beside you, exactly as you are." His phone rang then, Hyun-woo with an urgent update. As Junho moved to take the call, speaking in clipped Korean, Latoya watched him pace the room with the lethal grace of a predator. She should be terrified. Any sane woman would be. But she wasn't afraid. Not of him. Not of this. What terrified her was how much she'd come to depend on his presence, his touch, his rare smiles. What terrified her was realizing that she'd somehow, impossibly, fallen in love with a man who could destroy her with a word or protect her against the world. And when he ended the call and came back to bed, pulling her close with a possessiveness that should have felt suffocating, but instead felt like coming home, LaToya made a silent vow. Whatever came next, war, violence, danger, she wasn't leaving. She was choosing this life, this man, this impossible love that defied every rule she'd ever learned about what safety looked like. She was choosing Lim Junho, all of him, forever. The war with the Park family escalated faster than anyone anticipated. For 2 weeks, LaToya watched Junho barely eat, barely sleep, coordinating attacks and defensive moves with deadly precision. The penthouse became a fortress, guards on every entrance, security systems that would rival a government installation, bulletproof glass installed overnight. James couldn't visit anymore. LaToya called him every night, hearing the worry in her 12-year-old brother's voice as she lied and said everything was fine. Her father, thankfully still in remission, remained safely tucked away in his care facility, unaware of the storm surrounding his daughter. Then everything shattered. It was Wednesday afternoon when Hyun-woo burst into the study where LaToya was organizing files. His face was ashen, his hand on his gun. "Where's Junho?" he demanded. "Downtown, meeting with suppliers. What's wrong?" "They took Shanice." The world tilted. LaToya gripped the desk to stay upright. "What?" "The Park family grabbed her an hour ago, left a message." Hyun-woo's jaw clenched. "They'll trade her for Junho. Tonight, midnight, the old warehouse district." "No." LaToya's voice came out strangled. "No, they can't. This is my fault. She's only involved because of me. We need to reach the boss now." Hyun-woo was already dialing, but LaToya's mind raced ahead to the inevitable conclusion. Junho would go. He'd walk into that warehouse knowing it was a trap, because he'd never let someone under his protection be harmed, even someone connected to him only through LaToya, and he'd die. The certainty hit her like a physical blow. The Parks didn't want to trade. They wanted him dead and were using her best friend as bait. Junho arrived 15 minutes later, fury radiating from him like heat from a fire. He pulled LaToya into his arms immediately, his hands running over her as if checking for injuries. "You're safe," he breathed. "Thank God you're safe." "Shanice isn't." LaToya pulled back, gripping his shirt. "They took her because of me. Because she's my friend, because being close to me makes her a target. This isn't your fault." His voice was steel. "This is mine. I should have anticipated this move. What are you going to do?" The answer was in his eyes before he spoke. "I'm getting her back. It's a trap, boss," Hyun-woo interjected. "They're not planning to trade. Park's entire family will be there, armed and ready. Then we bring more firepower." Junho was already moving to his secure communication system. "Call everyone. I want 50 men ready to deploy by 10 p.m. "Junho, wait." LaToya grabbed his arm, fear icing through her veins. "Please, think about this. Maybe we can negotiate, find another way." "There is no other way." He cupped her face, and the tenderness in his touch contrasted sharply with the deadly intent in his eyes. "They touched someone under my protection. If I don't respond with overwhelming force, I look weak, and weakness in my world is death. Then you're walking into exactly what they want." "I know." He kissed her forehead, a goodbye that felt too final. "But I can't leave her there. You know I can't." LaToya did know. It was one of the things she loved about him, his absolute loyalty to those he considered his, but it was also going to get him killed. The next hours passed in agonizing slowness. Junho's penthouse became a war room, men arriving with weapons and grim faces. LaToya watched from the doorway as he coordinated the attack, his leadership absolute, his people following without question. "You should go to the secure location," he told her when the preparations were nearly complete. "Hyun-woo will take you—" "No." LaToya stepped into the room, ignoring the stares from his men. "If you're risking your life for my best friend, I'm coming with you." The room went silent. Junho's expression hardened. "Absolutely not. You can't stop me." "LaToya," he crossed to her, lowering his voice. "This isn't a game. People are going to die tonight. I won't risk you, and I won't sit here safe while you walk into a trap." Her voice broke. "Don't you understand? If something happens to you, I don't want to be somewhere safe. I want to be with you. You're asking me to let you walk into a war zone. I'm asking you to trust me, to let me stand beside you instead of always being protected behind you." She held his gaze, willing him to understand. "I love you, Junho, and I can't lose you. But if I'm going to lose you anyway, let me be there. Let me be beside you at the end." The confession hung in the air between them. the first time either had said the words aloud. Junho's control cracked, his arms coming around her with almost painful intensity. "You're insane," he muttered into her hair. "Completely, absolutely insane. Is that a yes? It's a you're going to give me a heart attack, but I can't argue with you anymore." He pulled back, his expression fierce. "But you stay in the car, with armed guards. And if anything goes wrong, you run. Promise me. I promise." It was a lie, and they both knew it. The warehouse district at night was something from a nightmare. Abandoned buildings creating shadows within shadows. The distant sound of Lake Michigan, a constant reminder of how many bodies had vanished into those dark waters. Latoya sat in the back of an armored SUV, flanked by 2 guards, watching Junho gather his men. He'd changed into all black, a gun holstered at his side, his entire demeanor radiating lethal purpose. Before he moved out, he came to her window. She rolled it down, reaching for him. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Always." He kissed her hard, desperately, like a man going to war. "I love you, Latoya. Remember that. Whatever happens tonight, I love you." Then he was gone, moving into the darkness with his small army behind him. The first gunshots came 10 minutes later. Latoya watched in horror as the carefully planned extraction devolved into chaos. The parks had more men than anticipated, dozens emerging from buildings that should have been empty. Junho's people fought back with professional efficiency, but they were outnumbered. Through the windshield, she saw Junho take down 3 men with brutal efficiency. His movements controlled violence, but then someone tackled him from the side, and they went down in a tangle of limbs. Without thinking, Latoya threw open the car door. "Ma'am, no!" One of the guards grabbed for her, but she was already running, her heart pounding, every instinct screaming at her to get to him. She zigzagged between abandoned cars, staying low, moving toward where she'd seen Junho fall. Gunfire echoed around her, close enough that she felt the air displacement of bullets passing too near. Then she saw him. He was on his feet again, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, facing down 3 men. Behind him, through a broken window, Latoya spotted Shanice, bound and gagged but alive, in what looked like an old office. Latoya made a split-second decision. While Junho's attackers focused on him, she slipped around the building's perimeter, finding a door hanging loose on its hinges. Inside, the building smelled of mildew and old motor oil. She crept through the darkness, following the sound of Shanice's muffled cries. 2 guards stood outside the office, but they were focused on the fight outside, their backs to the interior. Latoya grabbed a rusted pipe from the debris-littered floor. Her hands shook as she approached the first guard, years of pacifism warring with desperate necessity. Then she thought of Junho out there, fighting for her friend's life. She thought of Shanice, terrified and helpless. She thought of James, who needed his sister to come home. She swung the pipe. The first guard went down with a grunt of surprise. The second spun toward her, his gun rising, but Latoya was already moving. She kicked hard, connecting with his knee. As he stumbled, she hit him with the pipe, then again, until he stopped moving. Her hands were shaking violently as she burst into the office. Shanice's eyes went wide with shock and relief. Latoya quickly cut through her restraints with a piece of broken metal. "Can you run?" Latoya whispered urgently. Shanice nodded, tears streaming down her face. They made it halfway to the exit before someone shouted in Korean. Latoya pushed Shanice forward. "Go, find Hyunwoo, run!" Shanice hesitated only a second before sprinting toward the sound of friendly voices. Latoya turned to face the man rushing toward her, old, scarred, his face twisted with rage. "You shouldn't have come," he said in accented English, raising his gun. Latoya closed her eyes, thinking of Junho, hoping he'd forgive her for breaking her promise. The gunshot was deafening, but Latoya didn't fall. She opened her eyes to find Junho standing between her and her would-be killer, his own gun still smoking. The old man crumpled to the floor, dead before he hit the ground. Junho turned to her, his face a mask of fury and terror and relief so profound it hurt to see. "You promised," he said hoarsely. "You promised you'd stay safe." "Shanice needed help." Latoya's voice shook. "I couldn't." He crossed to her in 2 strides, crushing her against him with enough force to bruise. His whole body trembled against hers, his face buried in her hair. "When I saw you running into the building," he said against her neck, "I thought my heart stopped. I've faced death 100 times, Latoya, but nothing has ever terrified me like seeing you in danger." "I'm sorry," she sobbed into his chest. "I'm sorry, but she's safe now. You got her back at the cost of nearly losing you." He pulled back, gripping her shoulders, his eyes blazing. Don't you understand? You're everything. You're the only thing in this godforsaken world that matters to me. I would burn it all down, my empire, my power, everything, before I'd let anything happen to you. Junho. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and claiming. A kiss that said mine and don't ever scare me like that again. And I love you so much, it's killing me. Boss! Hyunwoo's voice cut through the moment. We need to move. Police are coming. The retreat was organized chaos. Junho refused to let go of Latoya's hand as they ran to the vehicles. Shanice was already safe in one SUV, wrapped in a blanket and being checked by a medic. The park's forces had scattered, their leader dead, killed by Junho's own hand when he'd tried to shoot Latoya. Back at the penthouse, after everyone had been secured and debriefed, Junho finally pulled Latoya into his bedroom. He locked the door, then turned to face her, and she saw the absolute devastation on his face. I can't do this, he said quietly. Latoya's heart stopped. What? I can't put you in danger like this. Can't watch you risk yourself. Can't... His voice broke. Tonight, when I saw that gun pointed at you, I realized something. I'm not afraid of dying. I've made peace with that. But losing you, watching you die because you're connected to me, he shook his head. I can't survive that. So, what are you saying? I'm saying you should leave. The words clearly cost him everything. Take your father, take James. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere my world can never touch you, somewhere you can have a normal life with a normal man who doesn't put you in the crosshairs of his enemies. Latoya stared at him, seeing past his words to the terror underneath. He wasn't pushing her away because he didn't love her. He was pushing her away because he loved her too much. No, she said simply. Latoya, no. She crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. You don't get to decide what risks I can take. You don't get to protect me by breaking both our hearts. I'm staying. You almost died tonight, and you've almost died a dozen times since I met you. She held his gaze fiercely. That's the life we've chosen, both of us, together. You think I don't know the risks? I walked into your world with my eyes open. I'm still here with them wide open. I won't survive losing you. The confession was raw, broken. Do you understand? You're not just something I want. You're not just someone I care about. You're the only thing keeping me human, the only light in all this darkness. If anything happened to you, I wouldn't just mourn. I'd become something monstrous. Then don't lose me. She kissed him softly. Hold on to me. Trust that I'm strong enough to stand beside you. Let me be your partner, not just your protected treasure. You're asking me to risk everything I love. I'm asking you to have faith in us. She pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Lim Junho. All of you, the boss, the protector, the dangerous man who kills to keep his people safe, and the gentle man who holds me like I'm precious. I love all of it. And I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. His resistance shattered. Junho pulled her close, and they held each other in the darkness, two damaged people who'd found their missing pieces in the most unlikely place. I love you, he whispered. God help me. I love you more than anything. Then let me stay. She pulled back to look at him. Let me be yours. Completely. Forever. Forever, he agreed, and sealed the promise with a kiss that felt like a vow. Outside, the city continued its dangerous dance, and enemies still plotted in the shadows. But for this moment, they had each other, and that was everything. The war with the Park family ended 3 days later. Junho moved with calculated precision, targeting their leadership, their money, their power base. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't clean, but when the dust settled, the Parks were broken, their patriarch dead, their organization scattered, their territories absorbed into Junho's empire. But the victory felt hollow. Latoya watched Junho close himself off, becoming colder, more distant. He still held her at night, still made love to her with an intensity that left them both breathless, but there was a wall building between them that terrified her more than any gunfight. Talk to me, she pleaded one morning as he prepared for yet another meeting. Please, you're shutting me out. I'm keeping you safe. No, you're pushing me away. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. I'm still here. We survived. Why does it feel like I'm losing you anyway? Because I killed 17 men in the past week. His voice was flat, emotionless. Because I tortured information out of someone and watched him bleed out. Because every time I close my eyes, I see that gun pointed at you and I remember what almost happened. But it didn't happen. I'm here. I'm fine. This time. He pulled away, and the distance felt like miles. Next time, we might not be so lucky. For the first time, Latoya felt real fear. Not of violence or danger, but of losing Junho to the darkness he'd always lived in, of having him pull away so far that she couldn't reach him anymore. That night, she made a decision. She called James, talked to her father on the phone, and then sat down to write Junho a letter. If he was going to push her away, she wanted him to understand exactly what he was giving up. But before she could finish, the penthouse security system chimed with an arrival she wasn't expecting. A woman, Korean, elegant, probably in her 50s. She carried herself with the same predatory grace as Junho, and when she spoke, it was with absolute authority. "You must be Latoya," she said in lightly accented English. "I'm Junho's aunt, and we need to talk." They sat in the living room, this powerful woman studying Latoya with sharp, assessing eyes that saw everything. "My nephew is planning to send you away," she said without preamble. "For your safety," he says, "but really it's because he's terrified." "How did you—" "I know him better than anyone." She smiled sadly. "I raised him after his parents died. Watched him build himself into someone powerful enough that no one could hurt him again. But power is lonely, Miss Williams, and my nephew has been lonely for so very long." "Then why are you telling me this, if you care about him?" "I'm telling you because I've watched him these past months. I've seen him transform from a man who only knew how to take what he wanted to someone who gives without expecting anything back. I've seen him care about your father's treatment, your brother's education, your friend's safety." She leaned forward. "You've made him human again. And he's terrified because humans can be hurt. Humans can lose things. Humans have weaknesses." Latoya's throat tightened. "I don't know how to reach him anymore." "You don't reach him with words." The woman stood, moving to the window. "You reach him by being exactly what you've always been. Someone who doesn't run. Someone who chooses him despite knowing everything he is. I'm trying, but he won't let me in." "Then stop asking permission." She turned, her smile sharp. "You're not some fragile thing that needs protecting. You saved your friend while armed men fought around you. You stood up to my nephew, the most dangerous man in Chicago, and told him no when he tried to push you away. Stop acting like you need his permission to stay. Take your place at his side and dare him to send you away." After she left, Latoya sat in the darkness, her mind racing. She'd been so focused on respecting Junho's fears that she'd forgotten her own strength. She'd survived poverty, racism, grief, and loss. She'd worked herself to exhaustion to save her father. She'd walked into a war zone to save her friend. Why was she letting fear stop her now? When Junho came home that night, exhausted and distant, Latoya was waiting for him in his study. "We need to talk," she said. "Not tonight, Latoya. I'm tired." "I don't care." She stood, blocking his path. "You're going to listen to me, Junho. Really listen." Something in her tone stopped him. He studied her, seeing the steel in her spine, the determination in her eyes. "You're scared," she continued. "I understand that. You almost lost me, and it terrified you, but you know what? I almost lost you too. I watched you fight for your life, take bullets meant for your people, walk into danger over and over. And yes, it scared me, but it didn't make me love you less. It didn't make me want to run." "Latoya, I'm not finished." She moved closer, her finger jabbing at his chest. "You think you're protecting me by pushing me away? You're not. You're just making us both miserable. Because here's the truth, Lim Junho. I'm not going anywhere. You can send me away 100 times and I'll find my way back. You can build walls and I'll tear them down. You can try to be cold and distant, and I'll keep loving you anyway, until you remember how to love me back." "I never stopped loving you," he said hoarsely. "Then stop acting like it. Stop treating me like some precious thing that'll shatter at the first sign of trouble. I'm strong enough for this. I'm strong enough for you, for your world, for whatever comes next. But I need you to believe that. I need you to trust me." "How?" His control was cracking, emotion bleeding through. "How do I trust that you'll be okay when I've seen what my world does to people? The same way I trust that you'll come home to me every night." She took his face in her hands, forcing him to see her, with faith, with love, with the knowledge that we're stronger together than apart. "That's all any of us have, Junho. We can't control the future. We can't eliminate every danger. All we can do is choose each other every single day and fight like hell to stay together." "I'm so afraid of losing you," he whispered, and the admission cost him everything. "I know, I'm afraid too." She pressed her forehead to his. "But I'd rather have whatever time we get together, even if it's dangerous, than a lifetime of safety without you. You're it for me, Junho. You're my person. And I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up." His resistance broke. Junho pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe, and she felt his whole body shaking. "I don't deserve you," he said against her hair. "Probably not." She smiled through her tears. But you're stuck with me anyway. They held each other in the quiet of his study, and slowly, Latoya felt the walls between them crumble. When Junho finally pulled back, his eyes were wet but clear, the distance that had terrified her gone. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Latoya blinked. "What? Marry me?" He cupped her face, his expression fierce. "Not because I want to control you or keep you, but because I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours, because I want to wake up every day for the rest of my life and remember that somehow, impossibly, you chose me." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard," Latoya said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I know." He smiled, that rare, devastating smile that transformed his whole face. "But I'm a terrible romantic. All I have is honesty. I love you, Latoya Williams. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Marry me." "Yes." She kissed him deeply. "Yes. 1,000 times. Yes." The engagement ring appeared 2 days later, a stunning diamond surrounded by smaller stones the color of her eyes. When Junho slipped it on her finger, he did it in front of his entire organization, making a statement that needed no translation. She was under his protection, part of his family, untouchable. James cried when she told him, then immediately started planning what he'd wear as her best man. "No, wait, can I be the ring bearer? I'm not too old for that, right?" Her father, stronger now that the treatment was working, held her hand and said, "He's a good man, baby girl. A dangerous man, yes, but good where it counts. And he loves you like you deserve to be loved." Shanice was more blunt. "Girl, you've officially lost your mind. But I've never seen you happier, so I guess we're doing this." The wedding was small, just family and Junho's closest people. They held it in the penthouse at sunset, the city spreading out below them like a kingdom they'd conquered together. When Junho said his vows, "I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you for as long as I draw breath. You are my light in the darkness, my reason for fighting, my home." Latoya saw tears in his eyes for the second time since she'd known him. Her own vows were simpler. "I choose you. Every day in every way, I choose you. I choose this life, this love, this impossible beautiful thing we've built together. I'm yours, Junho, forever." When they kissed, sealing promises that felt sacred, despite being witnessed by men with guns and dangerous pasts, Latoya felt something settle deep in her soul. This was where she belonged. Not in the safe, small life she'd once imagined, but here, in the penthouse of a Mafia boss, surrounded by danger and darkness, held by a man who'd killed to keep her safe, and would die to protect her. That night, lying in Junho's arms as his wife, Latoya thought about the journey that had brought them here. From tears in a kitchen to vows at sunset, from employer and maid, to lovers, to partners, to spouses. "What are you thinking?" Junho murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her skin. "That 6 months ago I was working 3 jobs and drowning in debt and grief. And now—" She turned to look at him, seeing the man beneath the boss, the vulnerable beneath the dangerous. "Now I'm married to the most powerful man in Chicago and I've never been happier. No regrets?" "Not one." She kissed him softly. "You? Only that I didn't find you sooner." He pulled her closer, his heartbeat steady against her ear. "But I have you now, and I'm never letting go." Outside, the city glittered with 1,000,000 lights, each one a story, a dream, a life unfolding. And in the penthouse high above, 2 people who'd found each other in the darkest of places held tight to the light they'd created together. 1 year later, Latoya stood in the penthouse kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd once broken down in tears, never imagining the life that would follow. The space had changed. Fresh flowers on the counter, photos on the fridge, James's latest school project spread across the island. It felt like a home now, not just a pristine showpiece. Her father's laughter echoed from the living room where he and Junho were teaching James chess. The treatment had worked. He was in full remission, stronger than he'd been in years. He'd moved into a beautiful apartment nearby, close enough to visit daily, but independent enough to maintain his pride. Shanice arrived moments later, her girlfriend in tow, both of them carrying bags of takeout for the family dinner that had become a Sunday tradition. "How's married life?" Shanice asked, hugging Latoya tight. "Complicated, dangerous, perfect." Latoya smiled, spinning to show off her outfit, a designer dress that Junho had surprised her with last week. "Who knew I'd end up as a Mafia wife?" "Girl, I knew the moment I saw you look at him." Shanice grinned. "How you got that I'm gonna love this dangerous man and nobody can stop me energy?" As the evening unfolded, Food and laughter, and James showing off his chess victory, Latoya felt Junho's hand find hers under the table. She squeezed back, their wedding rings clicking together softly. This life wasn't safe. There were still threats, still dangers lurking in the shadows of Junho's world, but they faced them together, two people who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. Later, after everyone had left and James was asleep in the guest room, Junho pulled Latoya onto the balcony. The city sprawled before them, alive and glittering and endless. "I have something to tell you," he said, his arms wrapped around her from behind. "If it's about another turf war, I don't want to know until morning." He laughed, that deep, genuine sound that she'd learned to coax from him. "No war. Something better." He turned her to face him, his expression soft in the moonlight. "I'm stepping back. Not out, but back. I'm promoting Hyunwoo to handle day-to-day operations. I'll still run things from here, but less directly, less dangerously." Latoya's breath caught. "Why?" "Because I want a life with you that's about more than survival. I want family dinners and quiet mornings, and growing old together without constantly looking over our shoulder." He cupped her face tenderly. "I want to be a man worthy of the woman who saved me in that kitchen a year ago." "You're already that man," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "Then I want to be a better version of him." He kissed her softly. "For you, for us, for whatever comes next." "Whatever comes next," Latoya agreed, holding tight to the man who'd become her everything. They stood on that balcony as the city pulsed below, two souls who'd found each other in impossible circumstances and built something beautiful from darkness. A maid and a mafia boss. A woman seeking safety and a man seeking redemption. Two broken people who'd somehow become whole together. The future was uncertain. It always would be in their world. But standing there in Junho's arms, feeling his heartbeat against hers, Latoya knew with absolute certainty that wherever the future led, they'd face it together. Because love, real love, the kind that survived bullets and tears and impossible odds, wasn't about safety. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. And she'd found hers,